Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Matt Galloway.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming on a miserly night in Toronto. It feels like autumn. It feels like the 1st of October. You don't want to hear from me. You want to hear from our special guest this evening. One of the great things, so I'll keep this very brief. One of the great things about our city, I love this town, and I love it for a number of reasons, but one of the reasons why I really love Toronto is that we treat authors like rock stars. Somebody who's written a book walking down the street, people will point them out. At my grocery store, which is mentioned in adult Onset, you'll see people shopping, people will point, and it's not as though they are on the cover of one of the magazines that's sold at the front, it's because they've written a book that people have loved, and that's a wonderful thing. We are lucky to have one of those rock stars with us this evening. Anticipation is a wonderful thing, in part because when the book arrives, you're excited to get it, and then you get into it, and often it is as great or greater than you could have imagined. And that is, in many ways, what we have with us and for us this evening. Please welcome, if you would, Henry MacDonald.
Thank you, Matt. It's a complete thrill to be here. I cannot imagine a better event, a better venue, a better host than this one right here, right now, tonight. This is my first public event with readers for this book. It's absolutely thrilling. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Toronto Public Library. Oh, and thank you, Indigo. You're here too. You're going to be working it later, I hope. Anyway, shall I just do a bit of reading? Okay. Monday. Dreams of an everyday housewife. In the midway of this, our mortal life, Mary Rose McKinnon is at her cheerful kitchen table checking email. It is Monday. Her 2-year-old is busy driving a doll stroller into the baseboard, so she has a few minutes. Your 99 friends are waiting to join you on Facebook. She deletes it, flinches at another invitation to appear at a literary festival, skims her 5-year-old's school newsletter online, and signs up to accompany his class to the Reptile Museum. She skips guiltily over unanswered messages and cute links sent by friends, including one from her brother that shows a fat woman whose naked torso looks like Homer Simpson's face, and is about to close it down when her laptop bings in time with the oven and the incoming email catches her eye. It is highlighted in queasy cyber yellow and bears a dialogue box. Mail thinks this is junk. She eyes it gingerly, fearing a virus or another ad for Viagra. It is from some joker, as her father would say, with the address ladyfromhell@simpatico.ca. And in the subject line, some things really do get better. A baking newsletter from a mad housewife? She bites and clicks. Hi, mister. Mom and I just watched the video entitled It Gets Better, and I thought I'd try out the new email to tell you how proud we are that you and Hillary are such good role models for young people who may be struggling against prejudice. Love, Dad. P.S. Hope this gets to you. Just got the email installed yesterday. I am now officially no longer a cyber sore. Off to surf the net now. My goodness. She types, Dear Dad, congratulations and welcome to the 21st century. No, that sounds sarcastic. Delete. Dear Dad, welcome to the digital age. And thanks. It means a lot to me that you and Mom saw the video, and that it means a lot to you that she is proud that he is proud, and that he is proud that Mom is proud, of whom Mary Rose is also proud. Sigh. She does not like screens, convinced as she is that they have some sort of neurologically hazing effect. She ought to write her father an actual card with an actual pen to let him know how much this means to her. She gets up and slides a tray of vine-ripened tomatoes into the oven to slow roast. They're from Israel, is that wrong? Ow! Oh, ow! Careful, Maggie! No, croons the child in reply. She returns to the table, its bright, non-toxic vinyl IKEA cloth obscured by bills and reminders for service calls she needs to book for the various internal organs of her house. Bing! Your 100 friends are waiting. A month or so ago, she accidentally joined Facebook. Now she can't figure out how to unjoin. She has visited her page once. Its silhouette of a human head empty, but for a question mark at the center, awaiting her picture, like an unetched tombstone. We know you're coming. Eventually. Her unadorned wall was full of names, many of which she did not recognize, some of which bore the rank odor of the crypt of high school. What is this mania for keeping in touch? Mary Rose McKinnon is unused to continuity. She grew up in a family that moved every few years until she was a teenager, and each time it was as if everything and everyone vanished behind them, or entered a different realm, a mythic one, wherein time stopped. The children she had known never grew older, and as in a cartoon, people and places retained the same clothes and aspect day after day, regardless of weather, explosions, or being shot by Elmer Fudd. She would not change a thing, however, each move having brought with it a sense of renewal, as though she had outrun a shameful past, starting at age 3. Nowadays, she reflects, no one is allowed to outrun anything. If one kid slugs another in the park, they're packed off to therapy. Delete. People used to joke about Xerox newsletters sent by relentlessly chipper housewives at Christmas. Their effect, and perhaps their intention, was to make everyone who received them feel bad about their own lives. Nowadays, people torture one another online with pictures of their golden retriever lifestyles and tweets about must-see plays in New York with one-word titles, new restaurants in Toronto with 4 tables, human rights abuses in China, and the truth behind the down duvet industry. Where is the meadow of yesteryear? Whither the sound of one insect scaling a stalk of grass, the time-silvered fence post in the afternoon sun. What has become of time itself in its expansive, unparceled state, uncorseted by language? Where have all the tiny eternities gone? Gone to urgencies, every one. As she types this email to her father, icebergs are evaporating and falling as rain on her February garden, where a waterboarded tulip has foolishly put its head up. Are things getting better or worse? Bing! Matthew is invited to Eli's big boy birthday party. Click here to view your Evite. A birthday party at some obscure suburban facility north of Yonge in a 401. Do these parents have no compassion? She peers into the depths of info and goodies, trying to find a date and a time amid exploding balloons and floating dinosaurs. She used to console herself with the notion that the human species would burn itself out like a virus and Earth would recover her bounty and diversity. But that was before she became a mother. Nowadays? How old is she? No one says nowadays. She'll be making references to the Great Depression before she knows it. It is April. Today is the 1st. Though anyone might be forgiven for getting a month's muddle, considering it did rain all through February, she wonders if that impacted the usual February suicide rate. Impacted did not used to be a verb. Sometime in the 90s, it got verbed, like so many other unsuspecting nouns. Dear Dad, The cursor blinks. The sound of splashing brings her to her feet. Maggie, no, sweetheart, that's Daisy's water. She bends and pulls the child gently back from the dog dish. No! Are you thirsty? Daisy! Is Daisy thirsty? Me! Are you being Daisy? Maggie dives for the dog bowl and gets in a slurp before Mary Rose listens to her. No! Cries the child with a clutch at her mother's right buttock. Mary Rose fills a sippy cup with filtered water from the fridge dispenser and hands it to Maggie. The child launches it across the floor. The mother escalates with the offer of jam on a rice cake. The child, after a dangerous pause, accepts. Détente. Another placated potentate. The mother returns to her laptop. Ask not for whom the cursor blinks. The phone rings, a long-distance ring. She feels adrenaline spurt in the pit of her stomach. A glance at the display dispels the faint hope that it might be Hillary calling from out west. It is her mother. She stares at the phone, cordless but no less umbilical for that. She can't talk to her mother right now. She is busy formulating a fitting reply to her father's email. Her father, who always had time for her. Ring, ring! Her father, who never raised his voice, whose faith in her gifts allowed her to achieve liftoff from the slough of despond of childhood and grow up to write books about the slough of despond of childhood. Ring, ring! Besides, talking on the phone works like a red flag on Maggie. Mary Rose will wind up having to cut the call short, and there will go her precious scrap of time to deal with email and all manner of domestic detritus before grocery shopping, then picking up Matthew, and then hurrying home to puree the slow-roasted tomatoes into an easy rustic Tuscan sauce. Ring, ring! On the other hand, maybe her father is dead. And this is the phone call for which she has been bracing all her life. His lovely email will end up having been his last words to her. Maybe that's what killed him. He finally got in touch with his emotions and now he is dead. And it is her fault. Unless her mother is dead and it is her father calling. Which has always seemed less likely. Dad rarely makes phone calls. Besides, in the event of an emergency, her parents would phone her older sister, Maureen. And Maureen would phone Mary Rose. She breathes. Her parents are safe and sound in their sunlit condo in Victoria, where they spend the mild West Coast winters close to her big sister and her family. No sooner has she allowed it to ring through to voicemail, however, than she experiences another spurt of fear. It might indeed be Maureen calling from their parents' home. Mo visits daily, and perhaps she arrived this morning to find both their parents dead. One from a stroke, the other from a heart attack brought on by discovering the deceased spouse. Though her neocortex deems this unlikely, Mary Rose's hand, being on closer terms with her amygdala, is already cold as she picks up the phone and, feeling like the traitor she is, presses flash so as to screen the call just in case someone isn't dead. Her mother's big, rich voice chops through. You're not there! I just called, and here she bursts into song to say, I love you. That was 15 minutes. Yeah, that's like, there, stay within the bounds. That's good. It's part of my new resolution. To stay within the bounds. Yes.
I don't know where to start. You're very busy. You do a lot of different things. We know about all of the things that are involved in your life, and yet it's been a long time since a book has come out from you. The assumption, I think, for a lot of people is, what is she doing? Where is she doing? What is it like to wait and be involved in something, but also have a back to doing? So have people anticipating something, as I was saying earlier, waiting for something, looking at you, asking you on the street, as the author in this book is, when's the next book? What is that?
Well, first of all, it's a good problem to have. It's a privilege to be asked, when's your next book coming out? I mean, that's a pretty great source of pressure and self-loathing and fear. I'm grateful for it. But it's true, there have been these great gaps between all the books. And part of that has to do with the fact that, you know, my art of writing fiction is one thing, but I also work in theater. And that's another love, and that's another place where I've committed my resources, my time, and my love. So there's that as well. And but what really took up the lion's share of this last gap in time was the birth of my children, and they were born 20 months apart. And so I got very busy, and I really did like a really good, you know, tail end of the boomer generation, decide that I would basically reinvent parenting. I'm going to do this thing now because obviously everyone who went before really, you know, didn't know what they were doing, but I do. Oh, well, there we go. And I rest my case. Yes, I did actually go into what I did refer to quite intentionally as semi-retirement. I wanted to be a homemaker, and I did do that. I did do that.
And so at what point in all of that did you think, I have to write, and there's something here that I can do? And what was that spark?
Well, it's interesting because I'd forgotten that I was in fact enacting an intention, a plan, which was to begin writing fiction when my younger child was 5. And I thought that they could then both withstand the temporary psychic abandon that taking on the marathon, which is a fictional project, a fiction project, would entail. Because they were both in school all day, so I had that block of time. And I began writing what I thought was a long short story, and I actually did write it. It was complete, and then I wrote a bunch of other short things, because I was saying, now just keep it short. Yeah, write some short stories. How hard can it be? It's really hard. I don't know how she does it. I'm talking about Alison Moore, of course. But I did think that I would start with short fiction because I thought that would be manageable. And I still needed it to be manageable because my children were young. And I couldn't take off somewhere, and I couldn't do research, and I couldn't stay up all night. It was very circumscribed. And I also couldn't wake up from a lovely, you know, repeated REM cycle to my own thoughts. Pad over the desk. No, what's would happen between the time my, you know, drying, cracked eyeballs popped open and creaked open in the morning and I actually arrived at my desk. So I tried to plow all of that into this. And I wrote it very, very fresh out of the trenches of toddlerhood, of raising children.
There's a line in the book that says, fiction is not the opposite of truth. What does that mean?
Did I provide the answer?
You did. You did.
Fiction is not the opposite of truth.
I mean, what's it? The interesting part of it, it's not. Yes. But I mean, as a writer, people often will say, how much of this is based on your own life? Mm-hmm. And writers will say nothing at all. It's,
yeah.
Fiction is fiction.
Everything.
It could not possibly be true.
I almost felt like, you know, Edward Bergen.
How thin is the line between what is real and what isn't?
In this book, it is as unbelievably thin and as impenetrable as a solar sail.
So, if it's that thin, why? And it's wonderful, it's fiction. But why not write a memoir? Why not remove the veneer of fiction? Just say this is.
Oh, because I'm not a memoirist. That's disorganized. It doesn't happen in a week, and I don't. It is not something where I would take what I do is I take miles and miles and miles of raw material, and someone says, oh, does writing just pour out of you, or is it hard? The answer is both. It's exceedingly hard. And does it pour? Sometimes it does. It's all over the floor, and it's a huge mess. And what from this belongs? You know, it's very, very, very hard to organize a story. And it's interesting. I've thought a lot about this because it is a strong but subtle membrane. My first book was set between 1899 with an epilogue in the early 60s. My second book starts in the early 60s and ends in the early part of the new century. This book starts in the first decade of the new century. So clearly I've been sneaking up on myself in terms of really consciously using my own experience and transforming it. And I think it's probably perverse because I do go for a challenge, and that is the hardest thing I've ever done, because there's no there's no sets, lights, period costumes, props. It's, I was about to say here and now, and that's true. And I worked with what I had. I always do that. And everything I write is autobiographical. It's almost redundant to say that because it's all channeled through my portal and my perspective.
When you do that, do you have to worry about that awful euphemism that is used constantly, which is collateral damage?
Wow.
That what you write could have an impact beyond the novel and beyond readers to immediate family and consequences.
I always predict the worst. I like to predict the worst. And that is a fair question. Fiction is personal experience transformed, and in this case, I very intentionally and consciously harvested my own organs, tissues, psychic and otherwise. And I soon realized that I was going to be taking a lot of people with me. People that I love, who love me. And I thought, well, that's a pretty good reason not to write a book. That's a pretty sophisticated means of procrastination, and no one would blame me for it. In fact, you might get some brownie points for being so nice. But it doesn't work. I mean, this book arose within me. It said, I know you thought you were writing this other thing, but this is what we're doing now. Sorry. It was really hard. It was really hard, and it was very, very difficult to maintain my focus on this book because I was terrified that I was going to injure people whom I love.
Do you need to, make phone calls to people, send emails, and say, listen, this is coming?
Yeah, I needed to make visits and earnestly address the subject with my own parents to the point where I think they started to glaze over. And I did. I prepared my siblings. I spoke with my father. I spoke with my mother. And they're both still alive, and my mother does have memory loss, you know, but I did. I put this book in her hands. Okay, so here, I'll tell you the truth. I put this book in her hands a few weeks ago and said, and it was really interesting because she was wearing a yellow twin set with sequins, yellow sparkles. And I gave her this book and I said, there's a character in this book. She's the best character. Well, I have to say that. She's the best character. She's funny and scary and sad and beloved. And people will read this book, and if they know you, they'll say, is that you in your daughter's book? And you're to say, I'm in everything my daughter writes. And that's true. And that's large, and it's not Hallmark, and it's not all that. It's not just nice, you know, it really isn't. But it's true. And I sort of think, you know, love's got to be big enough to contain all this stuff, or what's the point of being out of the closet? What's the point of having children? And there's no point being an artist, because to be an artist, you're in the minority, and you've got to be doing a public service. And this is part of my job. So I'm trying to do my job. I'm just trying to do my job. I'm just doing my job.
Mary Rose in this book says that she never wanted to be a biological mother.
Yeah.
Is that familiar to you?
Totally.
Why?
I never wanted to be identified or have any of my self-worth or identity attached to my reproductive system, my biology, anything. I had, you know, I knew I was a lesbian when I was 5 years old. I knew this, but I didn't have a word for it. I knew that was wrong. I knew it meant I was never getting married. And I knew that it also, when I got older, I knew that it meant you're an unfit mother and your children will be taken away anyhow. And so I don't want any of that, okay? So I don't even care. Things like that. So I did have a lot of internalized fear, internalized gynophobia. I mean, we know about all this stuff, right? And I kind of dignified it in a way. Had a lot of really good above-board reasons, and a lot of those are actually true, you know. I never actually, and I've said this, I have felt kind of guilty. I never have craved to experience the miracle of childbirth. And it's just me, and I think a lot of women are like that. You're not really supposed to admit it. I love the miracle of childbirth. I'm in awe of the miracle of childbirth. You know, but I never wanted. I always thought that's actually not part of my job. That's not.
What happens to you? What happens to her? Because there's a real. I mean, that's completely. She says something about how she's trying to keep up with the world that she helped to change, which I think is really interesting. That idea of being groundbreaker, being rule breaker, being somebody who is setting the tone, and then suddenly the world changes, and you find yourself part of that world, and you don't know where your place is.
Yeah.
What is interesting to you?
Well, I can relate to that too, and I'm 55. Like, that happened. While you were raising the children, it's like, oh my God, like, that happened.
I mean, there's something that is interesting about her and who she becomes in this book, given what she was involved in perhaps in the past, what she sees as her family, and the fact that she's now has her. What has happened to her?
Well, it's interesting. I can use a kind of military war veteran analogy. You go off, you fight for freedom, you fight the good fight, and you come home, and when you've been in the trenches or at the front, you've dreamt of the moment of coming home. All you can think about is your children and your partner, your husband or your wife, and that's what you're fighting for, and that's why you're doing this, and you come home, you cannot handle peacetime, right? And for me, there were lots of struggles as a feminist, queer person, we didn't say queer back then, all of these things, fighting a good fight, stand up and be counted, do the right thing, and you're doing this not just for queer people or women, but for everyone. This matters, these are human rights. Got them! Got a lot of them now. Oh, who am I mad at? Surely to God there's something wrong with my life, and that's what happens here, is that everything's fine. And it's when everything is fine, and there's no external thing or event or circumstance that I can blame for how tortured or angry I still am, then it's time to look within and walk that deep, dark walk.
So there's a lot of anger that's in this book, and a real balance between love and rage. What does that balance look like? I mean, everybody feels it, everybody knows in their own life what that's like. In this story, what does that balance look like?
I think there isn't a balance. Or a relationship. There's a détente, and I think that's what almost consumes her, is that it's out of balance, it's out of whack, and the rage threatens to consume the love, like cancerous cells, just, you know. And to separate the rage from the love and to say, these feel like they come from the same source, I can't tell the difference. I am not in charge of myself anymore. And that's where she gets to.
And you sort of hinted at in the reading, this sense that something could boil over. You see it later on in the book, and when things almost boil over, you're surprised when the water starts to boil.
Absolutely, and I've had the experience myself of being alone with toddlers and feeling like, and feeling like, I've done everything to make their little world so safe. Oh, that leaves me. I'm the most potentially dangerous aspect and entity, right, in their lives. And that's a shock coming up against that. And that's something that I try to evoke.
What is it like to be in that? I mean, when she's in it, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
There's a point at which the book becomes really difficult to read because you're not entirely sure what is about to happen. What's going through her mind, and what is that like to be consumed?
Well, I think it's terrifying to suddenly feel that if you're in charge of a little vulnerable life, but you're not in charge of yourself, you can be ambushed by rage. That's very dangerous. And I think most people can put themselves on a continuum of understanding what that's like. And I wanted to examine that from the point of view of a good person who just wants to do the right thing and is completely devoted and dedicated. But if you do have, and many of us do to one degree or another, anything unprocessed in your own past, when you have children, they will find that. They are heat-seeking. You'll come up against it, and it will pop up. And again, another kind of, warfare analogy. It's like when people learn how to do target practice, figures pop up for you to shoot at, and you don't know if it's cardboard or is it a cardboard picture of a guy with a gun, or is it a cardboard picture of a woman pushing a stroller? And did you shoot before you saw what was there? Were you in charge of yourself? So coming to and confronting a moment when, I had to do that. I confronted a moment when I felt like, I don't think I'm in charge of myself. I've got to get help to get back in charge of myself.
What happened in that moment?
In that moment? Well, I harvested that moment and I put it right in the book. But it didn't actually, it happened on the stairs. It had nothing to do with boots or anything like that. It really was just like a, and I went, oh, okay, freeze. Just stop it right here. Okay, wow, look at what you're doing. So dissociation can actually help in those moments. And you go, okay, we just do this now, and we forget about whatever that was, and you just leave the room.
Although, as you say,
let's just leave the room.
I mean, children will be resilient and they'll forgive you as long as you don't pretend to do it.
Exactly. And I did a lot of yelling too, and I realized I'm blowing back their hair with my voice. and I remember, that to a child, that can feel physical. That's like a physical blow. And I remember feeling terrible one day when my older child, who was at that point about 5 or 6, said, "Mother, you haven't yelled in a long time."
What is it like to write about the neighborhood that you live in the city that you live in?
Oh, what's interesting is we're here telling the raw material truths, some of them, behind a work of fiction. And on the one hand, I know that's bold, we're being bold and brave and bare and alliterative. But actually, what occurs to me now that it's all a book, and I no longer, I'm feeling sick to my stomach about, am I going to just reveal too much? And that's always a trick that a writer plays. That will stop you writing, right? Always write right through the naked stuff, the scary stuff, because that's when you get to the skin of fiction, right? But you don't get that membrane until you've gone through this.
So you have to do all of it
scary
first.
valley, yeah, okay. Scary shadow of the valley of autobiography, and just get through all that. But I realized actually the boldest, most daring thing that I've done is to set it in my neighborhood in Toronto, not TIFF Toronto, not important Toronto, not world, blah, 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 Toronto, which we are. But I set it in Toronto, T-R-O-N-N-O, where the rest of Canada hates us. They don't know us. They haven't been here in years, and when they weren't really here. They don't know who's here. They don't know the millions of people working in their millions of different lives, working so hard, night and day around the clock, as you know, when you ride in the CBC. Don't know about the diversity. Don't get it, don't know. So I basically invited all that regional, which I think of as, it's just regional snobbery. Okay? When the regions, when the rest of Canada accuses us of, oh, look, from Toronto, I no longer humor that anymore. I use my Cape Breton cred, and because you get it in the Maritimes all the time, no, Toronto. Well, I bet you're glad to be out of there, right? Well, no, I miss it. Because I passionately love the rest of Canada, and there are places in this country which, that make my heart beat faster, right? But I will always stand up for Toronto and say, I'm not going to humor that nonsense. Come here. So the daring thing that I did was set it in Nothing's Happening, my neighborhood, Toronto, and my grocery store. And I thought, wow, the rest of the world, even the rest of Canada might not give a shit about this. This could be professional suicide. You know, never mind outing yourself and family in some kinds of ways, you know, never mind that. The most dangerous thing you can do as an author is set it in a place where no one thinks it's sexy or anything happens. Like, we're not in London, England. I'm not, you know, I was just walking out in, you know, Sloane Street or what, and everybody knows what that is. And at the National Portrait Gallery, I had a cup of coffee. Wow, you did. No, I don't have that, right? We're still a young country, and I don't have Times Square. I don't have all of that. I've got Palmerston, I've got the library, I've got Fiesta Farms. Let's work with that.
It's the best grocery store in the world. Honestly, it is. So you say we are a metropolis of non-joiners. What does that mean?
We're individuals. We're really, really Canadian. You know? It's a metropolis of non-joiners. I think there is something really deeply Canadian about that. I think we, you know, the Americans have their marvelous muscular myth of rugged individualism. But in fact, that's what we are. Because we don't call ourselves that, and therefore we're not a group of rugged individuals. We talk to each other, we share, like, yeah, I think I cried when I saw the first flash mob at the Eaton Centre, but then after a while, my bike or something like that, there is a kind of a nod, like people, I think what I mean by that too, is that maybe we still really value our inner life, not just the rushing, distracto outer life of how you have to have all seen the same thing at the same time. You know, I think maybe there is a kind of individualistic self-authorizing that goes on. And it's in our what we used to call our ethnic communities, right? In the great diversity that is our city. And there's no contradiction, especially in the younger generations. Well, there are contradictions. There's always contradictions. But people are fluid, and they move from one world to another in their day. And they go, this is all me. I'm stringing this all together. I'm linking up all these experiences and people, and it all adds up to me. You know, there's something about that.
Which is a good.
I mean, it's not actually a negative thing. It's actually a celebration.
Yeah, because somewhere we are harmonious. We are peaceful, right? The lights go out and we go, oh, I'm cooking all the steak in my freezer. Do you want some? Or then, you know, the traffic lights went out. What was that, a few years ago?
People stood on the street and directed traffic.
And directed traffic. That is awesome. There was a time when we would have made fun of ourselves as Canadians for being so peaceful, but now, does it not rock?
You gave a speech that was published in the Globe and Mail around the time of World Pride in the city, the summer. It was a speech to the Law Society of Ontario.
Yes, Law Society of Upper Canada.
Of Upper Canada. And it talked about many of the themes in that speech surfaced in this book, talking about coming out and family reaction and being ostracized. Why did you give that speech at that time, at a time when people are talking, you know, you mentioned the It Gets Better campaign, there's a lot of celebration.
look at how far we've come, look at this great city, the diversity, the fact that we're holding an international festival, celebrating Pride. Why that speech effect?
That's a good question. I guess because I do feel that the work is not done. If you look at the rest of the world, it's obvious. But I also thought it was important for me, it's like a second coming out of that speech. It was important for me in my effort to catch up to a world that I helped to change in my own small way. It's almost like sometimes I think I've tried to do the right thing in so many ways, but now I feel like I am still sometimes running to get hold of the door handle of a car that I'm driving, you know? And I thought, if I'm feeling this way, I bet some other people, perhaps of my generation in particular, might be feeling similarly. And that there's something about exile, and that when you've come of age in exile, you might be surprised by how hard it is to return from exile, and the kind of bitterness and bile that can take you by surprise. And I think that if you don't look at it and name it and come out again and integrate it and remember it, because it's history after all, I run the risk of being jealous and resentful of young people who don't appreciate, don't you realize that we don't be that person.
What happened when you came out? What did your parents say to you?
They said a lot of the things that I use and recreate in this book.
I'd rather you were a river.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I wish you were a bird at the state.
Yeah.
Your parents said that.
My mother said that.
Mother said that.
And then I put that into the Globe article. Again, because it's history, right? It's my history, and because I'm a writer and an artist and I have a voice and I have readers, I thought, well, gee, what can I say that will stand for that kind of experience? Oh, I know. I will use my own. And that's what I did. You know, some of those things really are taken from my life and filtered and fictionalized and contextualized in 1 week in the life of a woman who may be a me in a parallel universe. That's kind of the best that I came up with. I thought, oh, Margaret Atwood exists in this world, but MacDonald does not. Therefore, Mary Rose McKinnon must be me in a parallel universe, and she writes YA fiction about parallel universes. Wow. Dizzy. Yeah.
So Mary Rose McKinnon talks about what that was like, what
Yes.
it's like to be told, you know, I wish you had cancer.
Yeah.
That
Because
I wish
you
you
see,
had
I became a mother, and also I'm so lucky to have my parents are very elderly and they were very loving and very sweet and have been for a long time. All of this stuff, and I thought, then why am I feeling such old anger? What's going on? I'm a terrible person. And I thought, no, you just gotta write it out.
What do you
gotta
mean?
say it like it was, and let's not sweep history under the rug. There's a lot of indignity in that. That's terrible. There's a lot of shame in it, right? And that shame just fuels guilt, and guilt just fuels fear and rage, and you're in the same kind of pickle. And I thought, I just got to get some of that out. And I remember seeing Wanda Sykes, after I had written that section, do stand-up about how she came out to her mother, and I couldn't believe it, because I thought, there's someone else who heard those very words. No, you're not! Cancer! If only it was cancer! And she went on like that. It was hilarious. But I was also feeling like, oh my God, I can't believe it. It's Wanda Sykes and my mother separated at birth. Wanda Sykes is mother.
What do you mean by the idea that coming back from exile is harder than the exile itself?
Well,
because again,
yeah.
this is something that she struggles with in the book, reconciliation.
Truth and reconciliation, yeah.
What does that mean? It's hard because a lot of people would assume that the exile itself is the worst. And when somebody opens their arms back up, you come running back.
Yeah, and you do, and it's wonderful, and then you go, gee, I should be nicer. I should never get angry at my children or annoyed at my lovely old parents. And I realized, oh, because I'm missing a step. I'm missing the truth and reconciliation step. I'm missing, actually, the forgiveness step. Forget not in the Hallmark sense, but true forgiveness, which is you walk back right into the crimes and into the bad time. walk right through it all again. And forgiveness does not feel like love. Forgiveness in the middle of it, of the process, because it's a verb, feels like hatred. For me anyway. It felt like, oh, this is shocking, I've got to get out of here. No, you got to keep going through. Because to forgive, you have to remember. You have to know what it is you're forgiving. And then there's love on the other side.
So, your 11-year-old, you quote this in that piece that you wrote, that accompanied the little speech to you.
Your 11-year-old said, if you forget
The past, it grows inside you. It's an 11-year-old.
I was astonished, yeah.
11-year-olds are smart, but at the same time, I mean, that just cuts right.
It does.
What does that, I mean, that picks up a little bit of what you're saying, but what does that really bring for you?
Well, I feel like it says it better than George Santayana or Sigmund Freud, or even, well, Shakespeare might be the contender. It's interesting because a lot of things that children say that are very sincere or profound happen in the car. Driving, there's like that, you go, wow. Maybe if I were looking at you and asking you for your thoughts and feelings, it might not come up that way. I just thought it was profound and clear, and that she was channeling a truth that we all understand. And it resonated immediately, and when I quoted her, I knew it was so good that I had to give her credit for it. I couldn't claim it as my own. Yeah, it does grow inside of you, and it does become an illness. And, you know, returning from exile for me meant, at a social, political, cultural level, I am married. I have children. No one can take them away from me because I'm a lesbian. No one can annul my marriage to another woman. But it doesn't mean that I feel like I'm really occupying that reality all the time. It's still a shock. It's still really new. You know, I practice saying wife, but that's a freighted word. But as we use it more and more, it will transform, right?
How much do your children know about what you do for them?
They didn't really know very much because I wasn't doing a whole lot in terms of like books. They're voracious readers, but when this book arrived, and I said, well, here's a book, it was like, oh, so that's what you're doing. I said, yes, it's a week in the life of a woman who's got two young children, and blah, 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 and my older one said, well, that sounds a lot like you. Why did it take you so long? That's a good question, and then the younger one said, a week in the life, then you should have 7 chapters in that book. And they said, a week, and I thought, yeah. I got there after about 2 years.
When will you let them read them?
Well, they are free to read anything that they want when they're ready to. I don't recommend it. I recommend that they wait, and they'll get more out of it when they're ready to. But, you know, books are around, and they're big readers, but they read age-appropriate fiction. I don't think they want to read my books.
No. But you'd be comfortable if they did?
Well, if they want to, I'm not going to stop them. But I can't imagine that they're really going to get into any of them at this age.
What do you like reading? I was going to ask you what you were reading, but I think what do you like?
Oh, well, I like reading all kinds of things. I love reading about science and medicine and the history of wellness and disease. I love reading about natural history, and I think that that's a term that might be coming back, you know, into vogue because it should. I love reading about, natural history, big, broad category. It's my favorite. And that I include physics in that, you know, all that heady stuff that I don't really understand.
I want to get you to read something else if you would.
Oh, sure.
But the last question is just, I mean, what is it like? You said this is your first sort of public event. When you go out, when a book like this is done, and out it goes into your hands, is that relief? Is it terror? Is it kind of nervous excitement? You have a room full of people who are desperate to read this book. I mentioned in the summer that I was reading, and all these people that I said, oh, what's it like? What's it going to be? For you, when it's done and out it goes, what is that?
First of all, I'm incredibly grateful and appreciative of the fact that there are, you know, people here after 10, 11 years after the last book. I'm very, very, very lucky. And I've been waiting and trying to cultivate that sense of relief that it's done and it's out there. But in fact, it isn't yet. Until you've read it, it's not out there. You know, there's almost like a collective consciousness critical mass thing that has to build up, where this book isn't a book until it's been read, really, by readers. And it's the same thing with theater. It's not a play. It doesn't exist until the audience is there, and the audience is your final scene partner. And I don't believe that any art exists in a vacuum, and it's not finished until it's been filtered through other people's imaginations. And then it's really not mine anymore. Then it's almost like you can sort of feel it, okay, let that one go now because it doesn't belong to me anymore.
It's about to happen.
Oh, kind.
It's about to happen. You're going to read something for us.
Sure.
After that, there's a microphone that's there, and you can line up and ask questions. We would ask that you ask a question. Speeches are fun, but they're not for you. And our mics are still going to be live, so we might cut you off. So Emery's going to read something else, and then we will take some of your questions, and off we'll go. Okay. You can sit, you can stand.
I'm going to stand up. I'll take this with me. Okay. Come on, Mike, so I don't.
Do we want to tell us where we are?
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? We're probably about 5 or 10 minutes later.
Time flies.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot, so much doesn't happen. It's real deal. Mary Rose unlocks the heavy oak front door, and Maggie reaches up to wrestle with the handle of the exterior glass one. Daisy obligingly headbutts it open and torpedoes out and down the veranda steps, making a beeline for the ginkgo tree, where she drops to her side in the mulch at its base like a shot pig. The sun has come out. The earth is steaming. This is going to confuse the magnolia tree, dumb blonde of the horticultural world. Already its buds look ready to pop. Petals that ought to be pink, they'll be black with frost before the month is out. It's asking for it. But sun is better than the unrelieved overcast of a winter that ought to have been hard and bright and blue and white. I'll take it. She breathes deeply of the scent of soil and surveys the dowdy shades of gray and brown and dirty green in her front garden with its skeletal trellises and spectral dogwoods. Beyond her low wooden fence and across the street, the rotted leaves that crease the curb are flecked with tissues, candy wrappers, and bits of recycling that got away, all the ugly promise of spring framed by the pillars of her porch. Behind her, Maggie starts ringing the doorbell. Daisy's head jerks up and sinks down again. Mary Rose McKinnon lives with her family in the Annex neighborhood of downtown Toronto. Mature trees, cracked sidewalks, frat houses, yuppie renos, and more modest, pleasantly dingy houses that cost a fortune. Theirs is somewhere between yuppie and dingy. She loves this house. It is down the street from a park where a 9-year-old girl was abducted in 1985, but Mary Rose no longer thinks of that every time she looks out the front door. She knows her neighbors and likes them, with the possible exception of Rochelle, 3 doors up, who tried to block their renovation. There are young families, VWs and Subarus, plus a few old-school Italian holdovers, Chevy Caprice. Among the latter is an elderly widow who has a Virgin Mary in the middle of her patch of front lawn that is otherwise distinguished in summer by the closest, greenest shade in the neighborhood. Daria pours Mary Rose a limoncello every Christmas and dresses up as an elf. Mary Rose's children are as safe as she can make them. She uses non-chemical cleaning agents and washes all fruit, even those with inedible rinds. She volunteers for all the field trips so Matthew won't have to take the school bus. Recently, she was on her front porch when 2 children ran past, followed by their mother, who was shrieking, "Sebastian, Caleb, don't run in flip-flops!" He's not like that. Thank you.
Questions, please, for Emery MacDonald.
question. Would you please talk a little bit about the writing process, how you actually sit down and get down to it? Do you have a technique? What kind of advice can you give to people who aspire to write themselves?
Well, I think, yeah, that discipline that you described and working on your craft is of paramount importance. And keeping faith with yourself is very, very important. And not being too hard on yourself is of tremendous importance. But I think the key ingredient really is stamina. You do have to have a lot of stamina. And that comes in handy when you're losing faith with what you're doing, which happens with many, if not most writers, around about the middle. That's always the hardest part.
Do you write at home?
Well, I did often write at home here because the kids would want to be sick or whatever, or somebody's coming for the furnace. Yeah, so I often did write at home for this, but I have a separate workspace, and I would always like ride my bike or walk the dog to it, so there's lovely decompression time inherent in that. That's also very important to have that space with no internet.
And it's done every day?
Yes.
With no internet? You have
Don't have wireless at my workspace. Done.
Done. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank
It's a great question. Thank you.
My question is about your previous book. You had a lot to say about the role of a housewife, and since writing that book, you've been a homemaker. So I'm just wondering if your views about being a housewife have changed, or you would have written that book now, have that experience been different?
In terms of the way the crow flies, were you
Yeah.
referring to that because they both kind of 1960s, what we refer to now as kind of mad.
And about the job of the housewife.
Yes, yeah. Man, she's looking better and better all the time. Yeah. Yes, it's different now. Yes, well, it's from the inside out. I actually took on the job, that I had thought I would never go near, and then I thought, there's a frontier. Oh, I had no idea.
I mean, it's rewarding. It's juggling chainsaws, but it is rewarding at the same time.
And it's exactly as you just said. It's juggling chainsaws, and it's rewarding, and it's the best job in the world. And while I was in it, I didn't think it was so hard. I was just working flat out the way you do. And it's only afterwards that I thought, wow, that was a big deal. That's a big deal, staying home with kids. Let me get right into that. That's when that started. When this started was when I thought, what just happened? Life just happened. No, it's been the best job I've ever had, and it's been, yeah, nothing like it. There's no life like it.
It's a very orderly line.
Thank you, Anne-Marie, for coming back to us with this truth in storytelling. And my question is, looking at the specifics, I haven't read your book yet, look forward to getting into it, is talking about these truths of motherhood and a very diverse perspective that you're bringing to it, and talking about darker aspects of motherhood that are considered taboo. How you feel like you're adding to, which I feel is a great history of Canadian women writers that I'm thinking Margaret Lawrence, Mary Engel, who did write a lot about this, and how important that is for you to add your voice to this topic of maternal ambivalence and putting it out there.
It's very, very important because and not only maternal ambivalence, parental ambivalence. And here's another thing: being a lesbian, I never thought I'd get married, and I didn't want to have children or bear children. And I have not born children. I have adopted children, and that's another way, another portal, another way of viewing family, right? So I was writing about parenting from a number of different perspectives, right? And feeling like I'm coming at this in a way as an outsider, coming closer and closer and closer to the center of life, as we all know it. And I Forget the question.
How do you see yourself as part of that larger piece?
Yes, well,
the herstory.
Oh, the herstory. Well,
do you see yourself?
I do. Well, I do see myself as part of that, and as somebody who was never going to get all caught up in anything really too womany, I went right into the center of it, and yeah, I did that. It was the scariest thing I ever did, because I could have not, and I would have missed. I would have missed so much.
And you could have not written.
I could have not written about it. I could have not written about it. I thought yeah. Can't answer that question.
I'd like to ask two questions that are sort of related, so maybe you could decide to answer one or the other. So one is, do you think artists, because their life always involves creating and then tossing them out into the world and having to let go, do you think artists are better with their children as well in letting them go?
Better with their children?
Sorry?
Better with their own children?
With their own children in terms of letting go when they're at a certain age. And the second question is, as both a playwright and a writer, can you talk a little bit about the difference, sort of compare and contrast the experience of feedback from readers versus the feedback of a live theater audience?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great. In terms of the letting go part, I have no idea. I don't know. I'm probably going to be very bad at that. Very, very bad indeed. The letting go because you're, wow, that's very interesting. Yes, becoming a parent, becoming a mother, and writing about it, and also having set my career, aside to say, I've already done that. This is something I've never done, and it can take everything I give it. Having gone into the center of that, every now and then I think, oh, if only you were like kind of a 1950s male writer, and there was this adoring woman who ironed my shirts. I totally had a whole Mad Men author envy fantasy thing going on, I was doing a guilty fantasy. And I thought, yeah, you know what, I'm not. I'm really going to put the children first. I'm doing that. And I'm writing tired, and I'm writing and I didn't get enough sleep. And I'm writing about stuff that a lot of people aren't going to care about. Oh, it's not big. I'm writing something small. Well, this is what you're doing. Stay with it. Believe in it and do it. So, letting it go, letting them go, I'm sure that's something I'll have to learn how to do. I'm not very, very good at that.
You want to talk about the reaction part?
The reaction part of the audience?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, the wonderful thing about being a playwright or being an actor on stage every night is that you really are in touch with the audience. If they unwrap a lozenge during a big moment. But as an author, I won't know it when you go like, or when you just get up and turn on the top.
Do you read reviews?
Do I read reviews? Oh.
Do you pay attention to what people say?
Only the bad stuff. No, that's an affliction, right? Because as an actor, as a playwright, I've had a lot of reviews, a lot of really painful reviews. I don't read, it's been years since I read any reviews. I don't read my reviews. Or at least I let them sit for a long time and until they kind of lose whatever, power they might have to infect my mood that day. Reviews are just a fact of life. They happen, they hurt. People forget about them.
Or they say great things.
Yeah. I remember those. Yes, there are. They make you feel great.
We have time for a couple more questions. Go ahead.
A number of years ago, you gave me the amateur rights to direct your play at one of these city hospitals, and I'm very grateful for that. And many people feel that you are an absolute genius in writing that play. And I mean, it's just amazing, your play. So are you going to write another one anytime soon?
I've written a few a play and a musical, and I've written for music theater, and I've co-created some shows since that time. So I have been doing that sort of thing. And the truth is, I really don't know. I really don't know. And you know, theater has its own challenges. Yeah, all writing is hard. I don't know how soon I'm going to plunge back in. But thank you for asking.
You don't plot that kind of stuff out, you know?
No.
This is next. This is
I
next.
think, yeah.
5-year plan.
No.
Giant board with.
I think it might be time to get the giant board.
I don't know whether they use the giant board.
Yeah, I think it's time for a board, and I think it's time for wireless.
This is going to be a lack of production. It's not a good thing.
No.
Go ahead.
Hi, sorry, I'm a little nervous. First, hi, Matt Galloway. I'm a
Look at even
I love your books. I've been very inspired by everything you've read. I've followed you since I was in high school. I actually first read Fall on Your Knees when I was in high school. We studied it in my Canadian literature class. And so I was just wondering, how do you feel about your work being studied in school, and what if, when your kids get into high school, they start studying your work?
It's a great question.
It is a great question. I'll feel really old. My older daughter, who's now in grade 7, has had the experience of finding my books in her new school library, and of having an older friend, a friend in grade 8, which I still think is rather a tender age, who has read my books and had a startling experience of finding out that her friend's mom had written those books. So yeah, that starts to happen. That would be funny if you had to study your own parents. Well, I'm sure that's happened. That must have happened at Margaret Atwood.
The myth is that writers write sort of in their office, wherever they write for themselves, and they don't care about what anybody else thinks of them. And then when books end up in the curriculum, I mean, when they are taught, dispersed and influence young minds, it must be amazing.
It is extraordinary, and then you know that you've done something bigger than your own little thing, and it's owned. It's owned and it's been changed, and it is its own entity, right? I don't feel like I wrote. You don't feel like you wrote those things. You just feel like they're out there, they exist, they're themselves, and they belong to other people. And that is great. It's a great privilege. Maybe it's a kind of a form of amnesia too. I'm not sure.
We're lucky to have you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.